so today we're talking to Victor Ekpo Bassey. He's the, is it convener now? Convener of H.
Lord, you had to say that. Convener, I don't think so. I prefer the word founder. It's more sexy.
Founder of HPEN, the highly paid experts network. And he's also the founder of Better Man Mastermind.
Yes, the Better Man Mastermind.
Better Man Mastermind. He's a guru, and he's one of the best guys in the information marketing industry. He has systems, he has knowledge, he's a repository of ideas. So Victor, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Now that you've said all this, the way I feel right now, I would like to meet me.
Okay, that's fine. So you are here, so meet yourself.
Okay, how does that work? This guy's kind of weird. Anyway, like he said, my name is Ekpo Bassey, and I like to basically say that I'm the founder of the Highly Paid Experts Network, but primarily my full-time job is as a husband and a wife. The business thing I do part-time, so pretty much that's that.
I would love to do your kind of business thing part-time too.
Well, there's a lot of stigma attached to it too, so you'll have to have a lot of audacity to be able to say that in public.
You know, like you work from home.
Yeah, I do.
You know, because everybody who works from home is
kind of lazy. Funny story though about the entire thing. There was a period of time when my neighbors just didn't understand what I did for a living. So one of those days they asked my second daughter, and they're like, what does your daddy do? He says, well, he sits at home, he watches TV, he plays with his computer, he answers phones, and then he takes care of his visitors. What does your mother do? She goes to work.
you know, one time I was reading a John Carlton article, and he was talking about how his wife is a lawyer, so every morning she gets up, she enters the car, she drives to work, and then at about 11 a.m. he wakes up, and then he comes out in front of his house and he stretches, and then the neighbors see him, and the neighbors are like, who is this deadbeat that this woman has ended up with?
I can relate, because it's a lot of people find it very, very difficult to connect with the fact that it's possible for you to be a responsible person and yet work from home. Yeah. So,
all right. So let's start with London. You were born abroad.
Yes.
So you have blue pally, or is it red pally in this instance now?
Well, I threw away the red pally a long time ago. I just have the green one. The green one. Steady. I'm all green.
Oh, okay.
100% green. Yeah.
Okay. So born in London.
Well, not London, Manchester.
Manchester. Okay, Manchester, but it's the UK anyway. So you grew up there? Did you grow up there?
Yeah, I did. I spent the better part of my childhood there. My mother was entrepreneurial, so that meant we moved around quite a lot. Okay, and it wasn't until after she passed. Okay, she passed in the 80s, and it was only after she passed that I got to know my dad. I remember I was in class one day and they're telling me there's one African chief that's claiming to be your father. I'm like, no, that's not possible, because unfortunately, I don't know what happened between my father and my mother, but my mother had always told me that my father had died. So that was how I grew up. Now the funny thing was, we had this guy that kept visiting us from time to time, and he had this amazing, beautiful daughter that I had a crush on. What I didn't know was that guy was my father, and the girl I had a crush on was my sister. So it was weird. Weird. So you can imagine coming back to Nigeria, then going to my father's house, and there's this babe, and I'm like, oh my lord. It was awkward for the first few months. Yeah. It was really, really awkward.
Because of course she knew you were having a crush on her.
Well, it was difficult. She knew. She took advantage of it lots and lots of times.
Okay.
But then, that was just it.
Wow. Okay. So, HPN, but before HPN, I read somewhere
Okay.
where you were hustling newsletter.
Well, it wasn't a newsletter per se. Well, in a sense, it was a newsletter.
Was it
but
newsletters now or City of the Month or something?
yes,
something
it was
like
a
that?
City of a Month program. Basically, business education for people, for business professionals that did not have the time or the resources to either say they were reading lots of business books or going back to business school. Okay, so it was called Power Ideas, and at that time it was my major claim to fame. It was also my worst, one of my best failure stories, because that particular project almost cost me my wife because I pursued it for 5 years without any profits whatsoever. It took us 5 years to get to a point where we made our first 300,000 period of time. But as life happens, once we did that, that same year, we immediately scaled up in terms of number of subscribers. Right now, we're like past 4,000 subscribers.
Okay, it's still in existence.
Yep, it's a major bread and butter for me.
Wow. So what led to Power Ideas? Because the regular thing is, you go to school, you go for NYSC, you graduate, you do the NYSC program, and then you start sending CVs, and then you get a job. So was there a job in between before that?
There was a job in between. The funny thing about it was that would have been my path ordinarily. But I graduated with a third-class degree in management, and once I graduated with that, it was almost as if my destiny was set, because I didn't think I could get a great job. So as far as I was concerned, the only option left for me was business, one way or the other. But I had the good fortune of having someone in my life called Olumide Lawrence. Back then I used to call him Big Uncle, and I think people still call him that. He is the executive director of Paragon International Schools. It's a big educational concern in Abeokuta. It was the one I served with. And the year that I spent with him helped me to just basically start to believe in myself again and know that certain things were possible. Because this was a young man that basically started also from scratch immediately after NYSC. So I was like, if it's with him, I mean, it's possible that could happen for me as well. But he told me that I needed to learn how to sell. Okay, if anything at all, I have to learn how to sell. And the best way for you to learn was to join an insurance company, straight commissions. Okay, that was his advice. And he was someone that I respected, and I said, okay, fine, if that's the way, no problem. What insurance company should I join? He said, Ekpo. So no problem. Once I got back to Calabar, started looking for the place. He gave me a letter to the person who was in charge of the Calabar branch. And long story short, I got in touch with them. And I took to selling insurance like fish to water. I mean, it came, I loved it. The fact that I was meeting people on a regular basis. And the thing with it is whatever commissions you get, okay, from a particular premium payer, okay, over the next 4 years, okay, you still get that commission as long as the person keeps paying their premium. So these things, it tends to accumulate. Okay, so that was where I started, and somewhere along the line, there's always a girl in the story. Always. So there was this girl I was going after at that particular point in time, and she told me that, look, she was into church, I wasn't. And she said, okay, there's this guy that you just have to come listen to. So I followed her to church thinking that I would score points with her by doing that. So I get down to the church. It was Redeemed Christian church, and there was this tall, lanky guy that was talking all kinds of stuff. And it was as if this guy went into my head and brought out all the stuff that I had been hiding inside, and he was just talking to me. Somewhere along his presentation, he just stops and looks directly at me and says, if you're here and you're selling for somebody, what makes you think you can't sell for yourself? Well, that guy messed me up. he just completely messed me up. All the designs I had of the girl, gone. The interest I had in building a career in insurance, gone. Everything just gone.
Some people will say they send them from village.
Everything. So I go back to the office the following Monday, and I'm telling my boss that I'm no longer interested in working here. I want to go start my business. Okay, fine. So what business are you going to start? I don't know. I just know I want to start. I know I want to start my business.
And I thought I had stories, man.
I know I had that. So the guy says, okay, look, think about it. I'll give you 6 months. I'm not going to submit your resignation. Okay, your commissions are still going to be coming, but we'll split them. Okay, so for the next 6 months, I had some kind of income. The problem now was, what was I going to do? So I started harassing everybody around me, and finally, my aunt, out of frustration, was like, Victor, look, if you want to go and sell meat, sell meat. I'm like, that actually does make sense. Okay. So that was how I got into that. Long story short, the business took off with a bang, and I did really, really well. Okay. And the thing with success is that it attracts other people, and there were people who wanted to get into the business, but because I was in the business, it didn't make any sense for me to share my secrets with them. So, but it was the first time I had made big money in my life, and the money just kind of got into my head. I would do really, really silly things. If I'm supposed to make returns to my partners at the end of the week, I'll spend the weekend in Transcorp Hilton, really, really have a great time, and then when I meet them on Monday, well, you see, sales are really, really hard. Okay, we can't really, really do anything right now. And you know that Nigerian saying where they say every day is for the thief, one day is for I had made sure that none of them knew each other. But for some strange reason, all of them made the decision to get their money back. It was weird. So the only thing that saved me was that I had the money.
Okay.
So I returned it. Until today, we're still really, really great friends. But once I refunded the money home and away, all I had was 650 naira left. And because I had a lot of funds to play with, I had gotten cocky. And so I was burning relationships up and down, and most of my transactions at the abattoir was cash, not based on relationship. And now the cash was no longer there. There was no relationship to fall back on. So it was in that stage of trying to find out what I was going to do with my life next that I came across the book Multiple Streams of Income. And that book, inside it was a statement that literally changed my life. It was that every experience, whether good or bad, has commercial value. You just need to know how to position it, package it, and promote it. I was like, wow.
You know, for Wall Street comes to money.
Yeah, you know. So that was the book that turned my life around. The question now was, what was I going to offer? Nobody will come and say they want to buy insurance products from me. Those insurance guys are stingy. Really stingy guys. Sorry guys. The only thing I really knew how to do was sell meats. Okay, but who was going to? I can't run a seminar on meats or anything like that. Course. So I took the 600 naira, went to market. Then a set of 45-minute tapes were selling for 350 naira. I got a notebook, and then I borrowed a mic from church. I wrote down everything I knew about the meat business and recorded it on the 45-minute tapes. I labeled the thing with a pen. You could even hear dogs barking in the background. And I'd already gone to all my customers, the ones that wanted to get into the meat business, and I was like, look, I wouldn't have time to say I'm coming to come and train you people, but if I put down every single thing on a cassette, how much would you be willing to pay? Some of them said 5,000, some said 1,000, some said 2,000. I ended up selling it for 900 naira at a time when tapes were selling for 50 naira in Calabar. So that was how I started off. After a while, people started asking me, when I only make cassettes, and you go. So then I put down the story of my life.
Man.
Yeah, that was that. So I put down the story of my life. By that time, I started getting into God, and I was taking my spirituality seriously. And I wrote about that. I titled it "The Wisdom of Jesus." I was selling that for about 200 naira. And that also took off. People started inviting me to places. I would speak for free, sell my tapes. One time I sold 3,000 tapes. I couldn't sell enough. I couldn't collect the money enough and give the tapes back enough, fast enough to collect all the cash that was coming in. Life was good. So that led to a number of things, me getting to meet with some pretty amazing people, Willie Crawford.
Yep.
Okay, so Willie Crawford, Janet Schweitzer, all of those people, I got to meet them there. And it was after the period of time that I spent with Janet, I did a 9-month advisory program with her. How I got into that is a totally other wacky story. But I
want to
ended
hear
up...
the wacky story.
Okay, fine. So I had gone to Ghana, met this guy, and he took a liking to me. And when I got back, and he said, look, there's going to be an advisory, a 9-month advisory night program with Janet Schweitzer. I'm like, who's Janet Schweitzer? He said, do you know Les Brown? I'm like, yeah, of course I know Les Brown. When she met him, he was selling tapes that he tied around with rubber bands from airport to airport. She literally transformed his life. Have you heard about Chicken Soup for the Soul? I'm like, yes. The marketing plan that built that, she's the one behind it, and she's a standing consultant with them. So I was like, okay, great. So how is the program going to work? Every single week, twice a week, 90 minutes. How? On the phone. So yeah. Well, then it was 50 naira a minute.
90 minutes.
Oh God.
That's like 4K5, right? 4,500.
4,500 was someone's salary. Full month salary at the time.
Whoa.
And I'm not talking about a low level staff. I'm talking about someone who is like level 14, 16 in the civil service. So we're not talking small money. It's not like, look, dude, forget about it. There's no way. And to make matters worse, this is on top of the 4,997 price. That was the price tag for the program.
Oh.
So I'm like,
that's in dollars.
That's in dollars. So I'm like, look, forget about it. It's just not going to work. So this guy now says that, look. If I brought you the money, okay, will you make sure you show up on the phone? I'm like, look, if you do that for me, I will kill myself to get on that call. So the guy's like, okay, fine. So my strategy for getting money for the call was to, during the day, in the ISPs in Calabar back then used to charge 1,000 naira for all-nighters, and then they were charging 20 naira per minute. So that come down, but 1,000 naira for the all-night. So what I figured was that most people didn't know how to use the internet, email, surf, basics. So I'll go into schools and tell them that, look, in order for you to compete, in order for you to have the edge, you've got to know this stuff, okay? Now, normally, if you go to NIIT and learn this stuff, they're going to charge you a lot of money. But I am just going to charge you 2,500. I said, oh, that's nice. Are you going to teach us all this stuff? Yes. How long is the training going to last? It's going to take 8 hours. 8 hours, 2,500. Yes. I said, the only problem is it's going to take place at night. So,
Man, you're a hustler.
Okay. I told them that it was going to take place at night. And as luck would have it, some of them bought.
Yeah.
So what would happen is that from 9 o'clock to 12 midnight will be the teaching sessions. Yeah. And then from 12 midnight to 6 in the morning was their practicals. So when they're doing their practicals, they're on their own system on the cyber cafe, and I am hustling on mine. And what they used to do then was that if you come 5 nights, they give you an extra night. Now I would have maybe like 5 people in a night, okay? And those 5 people would mean that at the end of a week, I would have maybe like an extra 5 hours.
Yeah.
Yes, of that. But it got so good that at a particular point in time, they just dedicated specific nights to me, and nobody else would use the cafe. Okay, so that's what I would do. I'd do the training in the night time. For time differences, from 8 o'clock in the morning, I'll get on the call. First day on the call, everybody is introducing themselves. The youngest. I'm also the only African who lives in Africa, specifically Nigeria. So these guys, the question was, who are you? What are you doing? What's like your products? All right. And I was hearing figures that was making my head hurt. This guy would say, for this seminar, $1,997. Huh? This 1 year mastermind, $10,000. Huh? My best product at that time was a 15,000 naira seminar that was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Okay, you were no longer selling meat.
No, I wasn't doing the meat cassettes anymore. I'd evolved. Come on, man. I'd evolved. I was a big boy, and at 15,000 naira for 3 days, you can't talk to me. I'm a big boy. You know? But here are these guys talking about a completely different game. So when it came to my turn, they asked me, so I told them that my highest price product was 15,000. Quietly dropped the naira. But when they tried to find out if it was in dollar terms or if it was in naira terms, and they discovered that in naira, if you convert that to dollars, it was less than the price of a good meal at a classy restaurant. They just turned it around and used me as a case study of how not for the entire, not just the entire call, the entire program.
Oh man.
This is how not
to do
build.
this.
And that was the thing. It was very embarrassing, but at the same time, it was one of the most liberating periods in my life, because it was the first time that I learned that the price you charge for anything is not a function of what the market is saying or what other people are charging. It's more a question of your belief in your ability to produce the results that you are doing. So steadily I raised the price of the seminar, raised it from 15 to 25, no drop, to 35, no drop. It was at 45.50 that I noticed, hey, so I just got the entire thing down, and 35,000 was like my sweet spot, and things just picked up from there. One day I had finished an event, okay, and I was always thinking about something to sell that would give me continuous income, but I just couldn't figure out what. I had gotten back home and a friend of mine handed me a book by John Maxwell. Now, I wasn't a fan of John Maxwell, and for whatever reason, I opened the book to read, but I opened to read from the back. And then I saw his promotion for his Maximum Impact Club. So I looked at this thing and I'm like, this is absolute genius. You know, every single month you send out a CD. You don't have to worry yourself so much about printing and all of that. You just record and you burn. You can burn as much as you want. So I was like, perfect. So I now started checking him out. I found out that he had 100,000 subscribers at that particular point in time. I was like, no, this is absolutely it. Okay, but I couldn't do leadership. It had to be the space that I was in. So I was like, okay, fine, personal development information, personal and business development information. That's what I'm going to focus completely on. And that was how I started, but how I was going to get the name now was another issue. And it's funny how books, one way or the other, have always been like the major things that answered questions for me. Because round about that time, I had just discovered Jim Rohn.
Okay.
Yes, and his only book that I have ever liked and read to the end over and over and over again, 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm holding that book, and there he says power ideas for, I can't even remember what else. So the only thing I just saw was power ideas. I was like, this is it.
That's the title.
Yes, that's what I was going to call the series. And I started out with it, but in spite of my enthusiasm and dedication to the product and all of that, it didn't really take off for a number of reasons. First of all, I started out by saying that they were motivational CDs. That was all people understood at that particular point in time. And labeling it motivational CDs, the next question they will ask is who? And once I point at myself, forget about it. No sales Nothing. Now, at the end of my events, I could sell them, but even then, not so much. They were buying the reports more than they were buying the CDs. But I knew there was something to it because at least some people were buying and they were enjoying it. So what I started doing was I removed myself from the picture and I focused on just selling the title. So this whole thing about knowing how to write copy and all of that became even more important because now, once I removed the name, people bought it because first of all, it's Power Ideas, and second, the title. So when they see it and they ask who is on it, I don't answer the question. I just talk about what the CD is about. If they bring it up again, I avoid it. And deliberately don't answer the question. So after a while, Power Ideas developed quite a strong brand on its own. People would buy it because they saw Power Ideas and they saw the title, and the title was relevant to them. But like I said, it took a long time for the thing. 5 years for the thing to catch on. It took 5 years for the thing to catch on. And throughout that period of time, and I think I blame myself, if I was starting over today, first of all, I wouldn't even start with Power Ideas in the first place. I'm older and wiser. But if I was starting today, I would have gotten into group sales much earlier. Because for 5 years, I was going door to door, talking to people. What I should have been doing would have been going to organizations and then getting an opportunity to speak to them for free and then selling a year subscription up front, not a single CD. And then of course, this whole thing about having a front end and back end, I hadn't figured it out as of that time. So the major thing that, aside from the fact that we were now doing group sales, okay, not we, I was now doing group sales. Okay.
Were you married then?
As of when I started doing the group sales, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I was now doing group sales, but I now discovered that there was a particular CD. That CD was called Strategic Focus. Okay. And when I started tracking, I found out that that CD was the one that people commented the most on as the one that really transformed them the most. So I singled that one out, okay, and started making an offer for that. So if someone was skeptical and wasn't sure on that, basically I would give that person that one and give them 1 week to listen to it. If they listened to it and they liked it, we can now talk about the subscription. If they didn't like it, hey, you can return the CD and I'll return the 500 naira I collected from you. Because before that time, I used to give out the CD for free. And because there was no price attached to it, when I called the person to find out, after a while, they felt like I was a pest.
Of course.
But once I started saying, give me 500 naira and in a week I'll call you. If you don't like it, I'll return your money and get the CD. They were now like, no, I haven't listened to this. Okay, give me 1 more week. You know, the entire conversation changed. Because of 500 naira. So I learned quite a bit in the process, and once we made that first 300 from group sales, all I did back then was multiply that, and we quickly, really quickly scaled up. But I think for me, what I learned from that was the fact that sometimes the most obvious answers are the ones that we don't actually see. We tend to complicate things a lot. It's simple. Sell this thing to groups of people at once. Book yourself over and over to different groups of people to sell this. It's 3 to 5 years to figure that out.
Wow. Yeah, but then now when somebody it's paying you to teach them how to do that, now you can charge them, at a value, that ensures that they don't spend 5 years themselves trying to figure it out.
Definitely.
Wow. Okay, so HPen.
All right.
So what led to HPen?
Okay, so HPen, I had this client of mine. I think you know him, Kunle Lomofe. Okay. So I've done some work with Kunle Lomofe.
Kunle is a legend, by the way.
He is. When Kunle was, I used to
and he doesn't even know it.
He knows.
Or maybe he knows it.
He knows. So how I met Kunle All right, so it's not. I have like all kinds of weird stories. So I run a fellowship at home. Okay, and one of those days, one of the things that gets to me the most is when people don't show up on time. So one of these days, I'm waiting for people to show up, and a friend of mine comes and says, "Hey, Victor, there's a party." I'm like, "Let's go." So I just basically left the fellowship with my assistant while she's waiting for people to show up. I jet. So we land in this big house, and they bring me in there. People all over, but it's obvious.
Wait, hold on. Let me get you straight. You were waiting for people to come for fellowship.
Yes.
They were not coming on time.
Yes.
And then you left to go to a party.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, jeez. So we get down to this guy's house, and then there's a big house. But it's obvious who is in charge of the house. This short, chubby looking guy running around showing everybody his work. So I'm like, okay, so who's that? And someone now introduces us and says, "That's Kunle Olomofe." I'm like, what? I mean, when I think about Kunle Olomofe, I'm thinking about Yannick Silva,
Joe Vitale,
all those guys.
Man, dude is a legend.
And I'm like, in my backyard.
Whoa,
guy, what are you doing here? So they introduce us, and the guy who introduces us says, "This is Ekpo Bassey. You guys should talk. He does all this internet stuff." And when you talk about the internet, it's like, so is it going to tell me? He has that look in his eye. But long story short, we get to work together, and he really appreciates what I brought to the table, and he just basically went to town with my name, and through him I got into some circles that I possibly would not have gotten into. But somewhere along the line in the course of our relationship, Kunle now starts talking about Facebook groups. And when he tells me about Facebook groups, I'm like, dude, I respect you, but this one, I think you've lost your mind. Okay, because I mean, the groups that I was in at that time were things like Gary and Okro Soup Day. We have like over 1 million members, a very serious group, by the way. Serious, honestly.
Everybody shares the opinions of Gary and Okra Soup.
It's Gary and Soup Appreciation Day. Serious group, I mean, really highly active. We have over 1 million subscribers, people who are passionate about Gary and Soup.
On Nigerian music homies.
Those are the kinds of things that I knew about groups. So Kunle starts his own group and invites me in there, and I'm sitting around looking at this, and I'm like, whoa, this could actually work. But I still didn't wrap my head around that. Not too long after that, my grandmother passes, and me and my grandmother really, really close. To a very large extent, I am the man that I am today because of my grandmother. So that completely devastated me. I went for the burial. And one of those days, I was taking a walk, still mourning, and I was overwhelmed with grief and the loss. We had buried her, but I was still overwhelmed with grief. So I sat down on the side, just there on the floor, on the road, sidewalk, just sat down there, and then all kinds of thoughts started coming into my mind, and I'm like, look, if I was talking to my grandmother now, what would she say? And she would say the same thing that she has always said: play a bigger game. Every single time. If you bring any issue, she's like, look, there's a game beyond this one that you are playing right now. Think about that one, and you'll be able to get out of this one. So that was like her default answer for everything. So I was like, okay, fine. So this thing that I'm doing right now, if I was to take it to a level where I could contribute on a larger scale to a larger number of people, how would I do it? Kunle's face flashed in my face, and I remembered Facebook groups. I'm like, okay, worst case scenario, I'm in my house. If it doesn't work, it doesn't really take anything from me. So, but like everything I want to do, I don't just jump in, I study. So I started joining groups, checking out how things were working. I interviewed almost 21 different group members at that particular point in time that were in different spaces, different fields, to find out, look, what were they doing, how were they generating revenue, how were they sustaining this. And as I started asking these guys questions and studying the thing. I started making connections. Okay, but at the same time, I wanted something that was over and beyond what others were doing. I wanted something that would be profitable, but at the same time, I wanted something that would fund a lifelong ambition that I have. I believe that at some point in my life, I'm going to have 1,000 well-resourced entrepreneurs who on their own, without it disturbing them, can give $100,000 a year to contribute to the funding of education in Nigeria. I believe that at some point, preferably before I die, that's going to happen. At the moment, I have 3. Okay, so that's like 997 to go.
Oh, you're on your way there already.
Yes, I am. So I wanted something that potentially would give me the leverage to be able to bring these people together and then fund that. And the only way I could do it was to share what I had learned over the years about this whole thing about becoming a high-profile, highly paid person of influence. I've been fortunate enough to study with the very, very best. I wasn't under any...
You started with the very, very best.
Yes.
Janet Schweitzer.
So from Janet Schweitzer, the Dan Sullivans, Mino, Dan Kennedy, all those guys. I got into all those circles, and it was a good thing. Back then I thought maybe it was a disadvantage because I didn't have any Nigerian influences. So what I basically did was whatever it is that I was learning there, I would learn in principle, and then the real day-to-day practice, once you're in this environment, it's a totally different
yeah.
Yes. So customizing it to what would work in Nigeria, trying it out, keeping what worked, throwing out what did not work. That was the entire, and that was how I grew. So I never did the whole send proposals everywhere thing. It was a strange thing to me. If I ever sent a proposal to any organization to do anything, it was after we had already concluded the discussion. So the proposal, in quotes, was more like a document that talked about what we had already agreed on. Yes, so I didn't know all this thing about...
I've never sent a proposal in my life myself.
You know?
I don't know what...
I don't get it, how people do that. You know, so I haven't been influenced by that to a very large extent. So, yeah, all that stuff, I said, okay, fine, I'll start up a Facebook group that I would teach this on. What would it be called? I got a list of people
because I was going to ask that.
Yeah, I got a list. I have always, every single thing that I do, I test. I don't believe in making decisions without data. There has to be a very, very concrete basis. I don't like guesswork. Okay, so what I did was I came up with a list of 6 names, okay, that I felt would work. And then I now got a list of 100 people who are ideal clients, ideal people that I would like in this. And over a month or thereabouts, I developed skeletal relationships with them. And at the end of the month, I now sent a message to all of them saying that, hey, I'm going to be starting this. Okay, these are the names that I think for it. These are the objectives of what I'm going to start. Which name would call to you the most? 98 of them picked the highly paid experts network. That was what we went to. Some suggested some weird names like Guru Synergy.
You know what you did is genius, because I've read from several authors. I was listening to Tim Ferriss some time ago, and he talked about how he chose the title of his first book, The 4-Hour Workweek. Yeah. So what he did was he had 4 titles. So he ran a Google ad and advertising each of the titles, and the one that got 90% of the clicks
was a 4-hour
Workweek. So he went with that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's actually genius because names matter.
Yes, they do.
Names matter.
Absolutely. So that was that. So I started on the 5th of February 2015. Okay. And I actually thought that it was going to take a while for it to be successful. So you can imagine my shock and surprise when in our 11th month, the silly looking Facebook group had turned into a multi-million naira business asset. Okay, but it wasn't so much the amount of revenue that was coming in from there, because to be very frank, all the revenue actually went back to it. I still don't earn a salary from the highly paid experts network anyway. But what was amazing to me was the circles of people and the opportunity that was now opening up for me. Places that I didn't think I was qualified to go into. Opportunities to go in there. The doors were open for me with a chauffeur or a, what do they call those people? I don't even know what they call them. But I mean, I was brought in there with respect and all of that. And it has been amazing. Over the years, gradually it started attracting literally all the major influencers in Nigeria. You'll find them on the highly paid experts network. Now, they might not be active, but for some of them, it's more a question of curiosity. They hear about it, they hear what's happening there, and they're like, let's just see, you know. So it became a melting pot of sorts for all kinds of people. And because they were in there and they saw me in action every single day, it became easier for me to build relationships with them. Gradually, those of them that had contacts outside would go outside the country, talk about the highly paid experts network, and I started attracting an international audience as well. So here in the UK, you have basically 3 major countries, and then you have the rest. You have the bulk of people coming from the UK, and from Nigeria. Okay, then you have about 20% from the UK, about 10% or thereabout from the US, and then the rest of the world is spread with the rest of that. But it has given me easy access, like I said, to opportunities and people that I never had access to. Some of the opportunities that come my way, I actually look at them and say, okay, I'm not interested. Try this other person. And the person who brought them would be looking at me and thinking I'm crazy. But my hands are full. I don't have time, you know, for that. So that has been it. Starting the Highly Paid Experts Network made me realize the power of community. Made me realize just what people used to say. You know, a long time ago, people used to tell me that, look, Victor, you need a platform. You need a platform, you need a platform. And it never used to make any sense. What exactly is this thing called a platform?
I mean, is it like a plank? You know, that
yes, that you stand on. Or is it this table here?
Hey, this is my platform.
You know, and they never really could explain it to me until now. I realized that it's more a question of having a group of people who know, like, and trust you enough to not only invest in themselves through you, but also recommend you to others. In the end, it's all about people, how you relate with them, how you bond with them. So I guess that would be the HPN story.
Wow. The HPN story. I like that.
Yeah, I think I should write that as a book. Yeah, the HPN story. I like that.
Yeah. So how does one become a highly paid expert? A highly paid expert.
A highly paid expert. Well, fundamentally, it's 5 fundamental things that a person would have to do. And ironically, these 5 things don't have anything per se to do with your expertise. Okay. It starts first of all with how you communicate the value of whatever it is that you're offering in the marketplace, how you talk about whatever it is that you are doing. Like what happened with Power Ideas. When I was going around pitching it as a series of motivational CDs, nobody got that. When I started talking about it like a series of personal and business development training, more people got involved, but not too many people did that. But when I dialed it up, I stopped referring to it as that, but now refer to it as a substitute to Lagos Business School. Yes. So you don't have time to go to Lagos Business School.
Exactly.
You don't have the money for Lagos Business School. Power Ideas is it for you.
That's powerful position.
Yes. It just took it to a completely different level.
Wow.
And it's the same product, but how I'm talking about it has completely changed the perception. And ironically, whichever way you want to look at it, perception is reality. How people perceive how you are and what you're offering is the reality that they put on that particular thing. And until you change that perception, nothing changes. Okay, so it starts with the way you communicate. The second thing that's really, really important is the distribution of content. Years ago, for you to have advantage, you needed to have capital. And that meant being born into specific types of families, okay, in order for you to be able to access that. But today, we have people who have capital and are not relevant. We have people who have capital and nothing's happening. They just have the money, but nothing's really happening. So a lot has changed. There used to be a time also where in order for you to be a mover and shaker, you had to have connections. And to a certain extent, it's still relevant, but it's not really like the major thing that gives people an advantage today. The major thing that gives people an advantage today is content. It's like the great leveling ground for every single thing out there. So the more you're able to distribute meaningful, relevant, and engaging content on the area that you're claiming expertise on, the quicker also it is that you're able to establish yourself as someone that can be trusted. Now, I am of the opinion that when a person wants to position themselves as an authority, the minimum requirement is that they have to know their topic so well that they can talk about it 12 hours a day, 32 days straight, and not repeat themselves. Now, a lot of people haven't taken time out to build that level of depth. And so you see a lot of people running around and they're shallow. But you can't build that level of depth without some level of investment in that field. Yeah. And so the people that I work with that all of a sudden, boom, they would have been in that particular industry, working in that industry, performing in that industry for 7 to 8 years.
So they're really well grounded.
Yes, they know their stuff. Okay, and everybody has that minimum level of knowledge inside of their heads. It's just that we haven't actually taken time out to remove them from our head and document them. Now, when you have that minimum level of depth, it means you can be generous with content. And generosity with content gives you a lot of power. So, funny story. There was this guy on the Highly Paid Experts Network that was running a program. And at that time, he was charging 15,000 naira per person for that particular program. But he was treating his marketplace, he was treating his clients wrong, just messing around with them. And it was related to my field, this whole thing about authority marketing and all of that. So because he was a member of the Highly Paid Experts Network, people started reporting him to me. So I called myself, I was like, look, this is what I'm hearing, and it's not doing you any good. Okay, the guy just goes off on a rant, I should mind my business, his business is his business, and that, and I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, okay, fine. So I go to his sales page, read the copy, every single thing that he wants to offer. I write a completely different copy offering that same thing, only this time for free. It killed. totally ruined.
Now that's the sort of thing I would do.
Now the only reason I can do that is depth.
Yes.
Okay, and so I can afford to, there's so many things that I can share for free that most people, they can't afford to, because if they do that, they don't have anything else to sell. Okay, so depth is very important, but being able, knowing how to distribute that depth is also really important. Doing it within the Facebook group that I was in gave me certain advantages, because it meant that I was not answerable to any market outside of the Highly Paid Experts Network. And so it became very difficult to control me or influence me in any negative way as far as my sales was concerned, because my market was just so I didn't promote outside of HPEN or anything. Everything was just within the highly paid experts network. If I did any promotions, it was to get people into the network. And the way I was able to do that was through content. So content is really, really important. The third thing that's really, really vital is this whole thing about community. Okay, having a place where the people who are interested in what you have to offer, having a place where you can bring them all together. Now, on one hand, it can be a one-way interaction, okay, where it's just you blasting out whatever it is that you have to them, and to a certain extent, that works. If you're talking about early 90s and the early 2000s, so a lot of people who were very, very heavy in the email marketing space, that worked there, but that's changing. Because now it's not just about you sending information, it's about the opportunity for them to not only interact with you, which is possible via email, but you get more power when you get your followers to be able to interact with themselves as well. So the new definition of someone who's an authority in a particular field is more or less someone who initiates and facilitates conversations on a particular topic. Because if you can facilitate a conversation or determine the conversations that people are having, you're determining what people are talking about in your space.
Sure.
If you're the one determining what people are talking about, you're the person controlling that space. Okay, so that's where community comes in, and it can take place online and offline. For me, I think Facebook is like the easiest place, especially if you are dealing with consumers, particularly consumers, small business people and all of that. If you're more business to business, doing it via LinkedIn, okay, is useful as well. So that was that. Now, if you have your communication right, you have the content right, you have the community right, then you can start talking about commercial assets, in other words, products and services. Because these people will tell you what to offer. Rather than you doing what some people do, the guesswork, and then throw something up and hope that it shows. So that's that. And then of course the final thing has to do with collaboration, and specifically collaborating with yourself. Because all these other things that I've talked about, they don't make any sense if you don't believe in yourself enough to be able to hang your hat on a particular field and say, and beat your hand on your chest and say, hey, this particular field, I am the dog. Not the dog, I'm the top dog here. You know, so that's how you become a highly paid expert.
So if I join the group now and I have this body of knowledge, this expertise, and I want to sell it, so what's the process? Once I'm a member of the highly paid experts network, so what's the process? What do I do first and what do I do next?
Okay, well, first of all, what I generally recommend is for people to join at the bronze level so that they get a certain idea of what our entire message is about. Because on the highly paid experts network, we're not about building businesses. We're about building practices around personal brands. And that's a completely different perspective because people are used to building businesses. Okay, so it's for a person to first of all get in there and be certain that, hey, look, I'm kind of feeling this. This is this is kind of like the kind of thing that I would want. And then once the person does that, the very first thing that we generally recommend for them is the action plan consultation. Now, the action plan consultation, I spend time with the person directly, personally. Okay. First of all, to help them get clear on what their message is, and then get clear on what their market is. And then once you have the market and you have the message, what exactly are you going to deliver to that particular market? One of our firm beliefs is that in Nigeria right now, 300,000 is the new minimum wage. Anybody earning less than that's very, very hard, very, very hard life. So getting people to that minimum level is very, very important. Now we have tiers. Okay, there's the silver level, the gold, platinum, diamond, and titanium. Most people will fall between the gold and platinum. There's a very specific criteria for getting into the higher levels. But one thing I've come to realize, and those tiers, they work for very, very specific types of people. So we have employees, okay, who are not interested in building businesses, they're not interested in building practices, but they want to build very influential brands that would give them an edge in the marketplace and enable them to be visible enough to be headhunted. And so they get other jobs and other offers and all of that. If that's a person's goal, then I would recommend silver. Okay, for the person. So the person comes in and we take the person through a 52-week process that helps them customize whatever it is that they're doing for that particular level. Now, a person who is just starting out in business can also get into that and get a lot of value from that, but we don't involve any of the heavy marketing stuff that is more aligned to someone who is focused on business. Okay. Now, if a person is getting into this field and, well, not the experts field, but is running a small business, okay, and they want to leverage their authority in the marketplace to generate sales for themselves, I generally recommend that those kinds of people come in at the gold level. There's an entire process that helps them specifically launch their brand. Okay, once they launch it, it takes about 12 weeks for them to launch it, and then the rest of the year is spent supporting them to build that brand so that they attract sales based on their personas as individuals. So that's that. Now, for people who want to play big in this field and become thought leaders or build practices around their brand and earn as a result of either selling their brain or selling their thoughts, as the case may be. Exactly. I had to. So I generally recommend for them that they get into the Platinum program, because it's in the Platinum program that we really, really focus on the whole thought leadership thing. Okay, so that's it. So depending on what a person's individual goals, there are levels and tiers of membership that fit more to that particular person's needs. Now, becoming a member is not mandatory, because we also have what's called the Experts Business School, where a person could just basically take courses that are related to what their immediate needs are at that particular point in time. So it's a very flexible thing with the opportunity to meet people at as many levels as they need as possible.
That's fantastic. So so how do you now of course I'm assuming that people go out and they talk about the highly paid expert network. You probably sometimes run promos. So how do you get people to know about the highly paid experts network?
Well, when I started out, I was like a madman. Okay, if you came within 3 feet, hi, highly paid experts network. That was basically it. Today we've refined our processes a lot more than that. Most of the people who come on the program, most of the people who come on are driven by my own activities out there in the marketplace. So if it's a webinar that I'm on, if I'm speaking on the stage, I saw my article somewhere, watch me on YouTube, whatever, all of that drags people in. Okay, so that's like a primary way. Now within Facebook, if you understand how Facebook's group algorithms work, you can make it work in your favor without you actually having to spend ads. So there are two algorithms that you have to hit within a group in order for the thing to pick up. First of all, you as the leader of the group, you've got to be social. Okay, so connecting with people on Facebook, if you're leading a group, it's not negotiable. You have to do that, because the more people you connect with and engage with, the more Facebook tends to recommend your group or all your properties, your pages, your groups and all that to people who are aligned with those kinds of interests. The second thing has to do with the interaction within the group itself. So if amongst groups that are related, okay, there's more interaction within a specific group. Facebook tends to recommend that group more than all the other ones. And that's why most people who set up groups, they don't worry so much about the tags. You've got to be really, really smart about how you pick your tag. So if you pick a tag that is too competitive, you're putting yourself at a serious disadvantage, because even people who are not even related to that particular field will compete with you. So you've got to be very, very careful with that. So when you hit those two algorithms, Facebook on its own recommends you to people. So that's another way that we get lots of people in. And then, of course, the final way just has to do with members just going out and drafting. Yes, there was a day I woke up and we were 8,000 members. We landed at 9,000 plus in one day because people had added their friends. Now, when you add someone on the group, an admin or a moderator has to accept that person first. So all of that were backlogged there, and it's usually I'm the one that has to go click the button approves. I came in and I saw 1,000 plus people, and as I looked through the list, one person would bring in 10, another person would bring in like 4, and some of them, there's content that they would experience within the guy, and then they would tag their friends, and when they tag their friends, they realize that that friend, because the person is not a member, cannot see the tag. That's when they go drag the person in. So those are like the major ways. I haven't like used ads. I used ads briefly, I think about 2-3 days, and then, but the ads, the funny thing about Facebook is that if you use ads to drive membership within the group, the normal day-to-day recommendations that Facebook does drops seriously. And
because
after so it just drops, and then you find yourself in that situation where you have to keep on pushing with ads. So once I discovered that, I chilled.
Okay, so I know you were I don't know, but I'm assuming you were working on the book sometime.
Yes, there are actually 2 books. There's one called Brand Acceleration, okay, which I wanted to use as the major thing to promote, but for some strange reason I haven't actually felt that comfortable about releasing the book. And then the second one that I just recently started working on was Get Good, Get Money, Get Paid, okay, which basically I feel very comfortable about that. It's like the book that not only tells the story of HPEN, but talks about how you become a highly paid expert, and then it's a really, really great positioning tool for HPEN itself.
So when is it launching?
January
2018.
Yep.
That's a good 6 months away. So you want us to wait for 6 months?
Yes, no, you guys can wait. You guys wait.
All right, Ma, it's been great talking to you. I learned tons myself.
Nice.
The wacky stories. You know. So I hope we can get you again.
I would love that. Oh,
Thank you, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so guys, so we were just talking to Mr. HPEN Victor
Victor, not
Bassey.
Mr. HPEN.
Victor Ekpo Bassey. So you guys go check out, if you want to be a highly paid expert, go check out the Highly Paid Experts Network. Search for it on Facebook and join the group. And
there's actually a shortcut for that. So it's highlypaidexpertsnetwork.net.
Oh, okay. So it's going to take you directly to the group. So that's Highly Paid Experts Network.net. So thank you for coming again, bro.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you. Yeah.